knows about DeepMind and knows what it's doing now. But let's begin briefly with your story, because one of the things that's interesting is you started up, I think, in about 2010, and you had the ideas from before then. And we'd had 40 years of AI winters and AI not happening, and certainly as someone covering science then, AI was not something I was thinking about. But it seems the zeitgeist has been favorable to you, or why did DeepMind happen then?
Well, I've been working on AI actually for over 30 years now. So first of all in games, making games, AI for games and simulation games. And then I did, studied computer science and neuroscience. And I was sort of observing the whole time how the AI field was developing. And in the 90s, in this sort of AI winter you're talking about, it was all logic systems. So they were called expert systems. Many of you remember Deep Blue that beat Garry Kasparov at chess. So these are pre-programmed systems that actually the programmers and the designers of the system solve the problem and encapsulate it in rules. And then the computer, the AI system is actually not intelligent at all. It's just dumbly executing those heuristics. And the problem with that is that you end up with brittle systems. They can't learn anything new, and they certainly can't discover anything new because they're limited, obviously, inherently by what you as the designers or the programmers already know how to do. So to me, it was obvious all through the 90s and at Cambridge and MIT where I studied, this was the prevailing view, still is in some of those places, that logic systems were the way to go. And I think that was the reason there was a lot of this AI winter, is because they were inherently brittle and limited. So the idea with DeepMind in 2010 is we could see from, deep learning had just been invented in academia. Reinforcement learning was something that we discovered the brain uses as well, the dopamine system in the brain. So animals, including humans, learn using reinforcement learning. So it was obvious to me that what we needed to build was a learning system that learned for itself and was general. And that was the genesis of DeepMind. And also we could see things like GPUs and hardware accelerating as well. So I've used GPUs in their first incarnation, which was for computer graphics, for computer games. But they were very general purpose. It turns out everything's a matrix multiplication in the world. So we were early, and we felt that it was a sort of an Apollo program effort to put together all of these nascent ideas and ingredients, and then we thought extremely fast progress could be made, and that's how it turned out.
And is this where you expected to be when you had this vision in 2010? Did you think 15 years' time, between many engagements, I'll be here talking to a room full of people, AI is the thing, and we'll have solved protein folding?
Well, actually, it has gone roughly along the lines that we planned. Of course, there have been hiccups on the way and unexpected things, but when we set out in 2010, we thought it would be a 20-year, roughly, mission to get to AGI, Artificial General Intelligence. I think we are within probably 10 years of that. So from here, roughly that timeline. And protein folding and doing science with the AI systems on the way to AGI is always been my main passion. And protein folding was always at the top of the list of scientific problems I wanted to tackle that would be transformative if we could find a breakthrough.
Okay, so let's go back to that, and I think we should talk a bit about AGI as well, because one of the interesting things is, that we've been talking as a society about AI really, intensely since ChatGPT turned up, which is a very different kind of AI from what you've been doing. And so far, as an observer, your AIs have all been very specific. It was slightly weird watching it. You started doing quite pointless things. You got very good at computer games. You got very good at chess.
I wouldn't say they're pointless, but they're more for fun, maybe you could say.
Yeah.
And so look, we started with games because, partly because of my background in making games and playing chess and things like that very seriously. But I could see games have always had a long history with AI. Right back from the days of Turing and the dawn of AI and Shannon. All of these sort of greats, they started with chess programs. That's why almost every AI pioneer did that. And AI and chess, was considered a sort of Drosophila training ground for AI systems. And, they're always like a proving ground for us. Can you make quick progress with your algorithmic ideas? And then it's very easy to benchmark where you are. If you're beating the world champion or the best narrow computer, then you're doing well. But the point was that they were always a means to an end, not an end in themselves. So the idea was to always develop, not to just beat the Go or chess or the world champions at those games, but actually do it in a way that was general and that would transfer to other domains, both science and commercial applications. And that's what we did with deep reinforcement learning, what we did with AlphaGo. All of those things are very general purpose systems that we still, and techniques that we still use today. Now, when you get to something like AlphaFold or our scientific programs that solve things like protein folding, then you're really interested in the solution itself. If you have the cure for cancer, you don't care how it was done. You just want the cure for cancer. So you really want to just throw the kitchen sink at it. So what you start with is all of the general techniques that you have as a baseline, and then you look at the domain itself, and if the domain's valuable enough to society or commercially, then you add bespoke things on top, right? And that's how you get something like AlphaFold as a sort of breakthrough program. But in the end, the goal of DeepMind, and still is, when we started and still is today, is to get to artificial general intelligence, which means a general system that's capable out of the box of doing any cognitive task that humans can. So fully general, full general Turing machine, as Alan Turing specified back in the 50s, that's capable of computing anything that is computable. And that is the goal that was the original goal of AI as a field, and that's the goal that DeepMind has. And of course, what you've seen recently are things like these language models. Obviously, ChatGPT reached the mass market and the general public's consciousness. But actually, all the top labs, and obviously including Google and DeepMind, were working on language models. We had our own internal ones called Chinchilla, and Google had theirs. And of course, it's all based on transformers, the architecture that was invented at Google Research. All of the current models are based on that. So it's an exciting time because language is obviously a general purpose capability. And so that's why everyone's got very excited about the chatbots. And it's very interesting and kind of unexpected how far that technique has been able to scale. So I think we're closer than ever in reach of building these sort of generalized systems. But you still need the specialized systems at the moment to do specific domains to the highest level.
And is an LLM closer to AGI? I mean, it feels to me closer to interacting with a human, which feels to me what AGI is, but is it actually?
I think that the multimodal, and these days LLMs is not even the right word because they're not just large language models, they're multimodal. So for example, our Lighthouse model, Gemini, is multimodal from the beginning, so they can cope with any input. So, vision, audio, video, code, all of these things, as well as text. So I think my view is that that's going to be a key component of an AGI system, but probably not enough on its own. I think there's still 2 or 3 big innovations needed from here till we get to AGI, and that's why I'm more of on a 10-year time scale than others. Some of my colleagues and peers and and some of our competitors have much shorter timelines than that, but I think 10 years is about right.
And how does this work with I guess the sort of internal tensions at DeepMind? Because one of the things I've felt certainly in the early years is you were just one of the best funded university labs in the world, in like Bell Labs or like something, one of the sort of great commercial research organizations. But now you're doing stuff that's extremely useful, and you've got a pipeline of, I mean, we mentioned protein folding, but you've got weather forecasting, you've just got a silver medal in the International Mathematical Olympiad. Demis, I'm sure, could get a gold if you applied yourself, but your system has got a silver medal. You're doing all of these other things. Are you in the background also? Have you got teams thinking, but now we need to push on and make AGI?
Yeah, we have a big organization, so we're able to, as you said, we modeled original DeepMind on kind of like a Bell Labs, one of the world's best industrial labs that could invent the future and could think long term. And I think we really showed what that kind of setup can do, and I think it can be very effective. in laying the groundwork for the types of technologies you see today. So any kind of deep tech startup, I think, needs time to develop its mature its technology. And I think what we've got to a very exciting moment now in the last 2-3 years where this technology is pretty mature and it's ready to be applied to all sorts of things. So obviously there's the sciences and mathematics and medicine and advancing all those fields, so kind of applied science, if you like. But there's also productivity and commercial applications, things like the chatbots or reimagining the workflow and your emailing and so on, which is just nascent and helping as coding assistants and so on. So we work on all of that too, obviously, and we power up. We're like the engine room for Google. So Google has incredible, 15, I think, 500 million user plus surfaces and products, and AI is at the heart of all of those things, and new features are going in all the time, coming out from some of the technologies we're developing at DeepMind. And now, it's great in a way because the types of technologies you need for products are actually about 90% similar to the type of research you would do anyway towards AGI. So those things have converged a lot. Whereas if 5 years ago or 10 years ago, if you wanted to build AI into a product, you'd have to, because the general systems and the learning systems weren't quite good enough yet, you'd have to go back to logic networks, expert systems. So the kind of Alexa era of assistants, for example, were all built still on that old type of technology, which is why they were brittle and they don't generalize and they're not that useful in the end. Whereas the new generation of assistants built on these learning systems are going to be way more capable. So it's actually very exciting, and I actually see things like Gemini and also our own vision of a multimodal assistant in the future called Astra at the moment as on the critical path towards an AGI system, because they actually push research towards that.
Shall we watch a video of Astra?
Sure.
We've got a video of Astra working. I think, whilst we're waiting.
Yeah.
Okay, let's do some tests.
Oh.
Tell me when you see something that makes sound.
I see a speaker, which makes sound.
What is that part of the speaker called?
That is the tweeter. It produces high-frequency sounds.
Give me a creative alliteration about these.
Creative crayons color cheerfully. They certainly craft colorful creations.
What does that part of the code do?
This code defines encryption and decryption functions. It seems to use AES-CBC encryption to encode and decode data based on a key and an initialization vector, IV.
That's right. What neighborhood do you think I'm in?
This appears to be the King's Cross area of London. It is known for its railway station and transportation connections.
Do you remember where you saw my glasses?
Yes, I do. Your glasses were on the desk near a red apple.
So that's just the beginning of, basically a universal assistant that can help you in your everyday life.
What can I add here to make this system
maybe
faster?
We can stop the video here. So, and there'll be different form factors too. So you can see it on your phone, you can see it on the glass. And I can't tell you how amazing that would be, if we went back 5 years and you told me we would be at this point where you just point at something with a camera and it fully understands the spatial context around you. It's pretty incredible, right? Like it's sort of got concepts and it understands what objects are and, even recognize the neighborhood we were in just from sort of a random view out of the window. Things like memory for, where you left something that could be extremely useful as well as an assistant. Personalization, all of these things are coming in this, what I would call the next generation of assistant. I call it kind of universal assistant because I imagine you taking it around everywhere with you, on different devices. It's the same assistant, whether it's playing a game with you or it's helping with your work on your desktop or traveling around with you on a mobile device.
And is that, so I think I'd correctly characterize things hopefully by saying there are some people who would see, that is a step on the way to general intelligence.
Yeah.
And there's others who'd say that there is essentially this gulf, this secret source that we haven't, that isn't bridgeable with the current methods we're using. Is it simply, you reach 70% of the way there, then you're 80% of the way there, then you're 90% of the way there, or is there something else that needs to be solved?
Well, we definitely need these systems, and all of you, will, I'm sure, have used the various, state-of-the-art chatbots today. They're very passive, these systems. They're Q&A systems, okay? So they're pretty useful for answering a question, maybe doing a bit of research, summarizing some text, something like that. What we want next is more agent-based systems that are able to achieve certain goals or tasks that you give it. That's certainly what a useful assistant, digital assistant would need to do. Plan a holiday, plan your trip around a city, tell you, book you tickets for something. And so they need to be able to act in the world and carry out actions and do planning. So we need planning, reasoning, actions. We need better memory. We need personalization, so it kind of understands your preferences and remembers what you've told it and what you like. So all of those technologies are needed. Now, the shorthand I give for that is we some of our games programs like AlphaGo that beat the world champion at Go, has planning and reasoning in it, albeit in this narrow domain of a game. So we have to bring those technologies and apply them now to multimodal models like Gemini that are basically models of the world. As you've just seen, it understands the world around it. But how do you do planning in the messy real world? As opposed to a kind of clean setting like a game. So that's I think the next big breakthrough that's needed.
And would that assistant also be able to apply, AlphaGo levels of chess playing and thoughts and proteins?
So yes, exactly. So there's two ways that could happen. There's a very interesting debate at the moment we're having internally and just in the research community is, so you can imagine one of the big things that you want your general agent system to do is to do tool use, to use tools. And those tools could be hardware, so like robotics or things in the physical world, but they could also be, of course, other pieces of software, so maybe like a calculator, something like that. But they could also be other AI systems. So you could imagine a general AI system like the brain, then calling something like AlphaFold or AlphaGo to play Go or to fold a protein. Or, because it's all digital, you could imagine folding that capability into the general brain, into Gemini. But then that has trade-offs, because then are you overloading it with specialized information, say too many chess games, and then that makes it worse at language. So you have to, it's an open research question whether you want to separate it into a tool, even an AI tool that a general AI can use in that specialized situation, or do you want to upstream that into the main system? And for some things you want to upstream into the main system, like coding and mathematics, because it turns out if you put it in the main system, it actually makes it better at everything. So they're sort of like, lots of people are studying theories of learning and child development and things like that to actually sort of think through what sorts of things may actually be a general purpose and better off in the main system than in the periphery tools.
How much are you still a science organization? How much are you still trying to be Bell Labs?
Well, we're still, we're always going to be a research-led organization. That's what we do at Google DeepMind as we are now. But we increasingly have a bigger and bigger sort of products applied group that interfaces with the rest of Google. But we still kind of try and keep our foundational research a little bit protected from that, so that it can think longer term and more blue sky according to our own research roadmaps, not just being led by the product roadmaps.
Yeah. And you personally, how do you keep up with the...
Well, I try to. I mean, I used to, till about 18 months ago, reserve my evenings, and I'm quite a nocturnal person, so I sort of reserve my midnight till 3 a.m. time for thinking and reading papers and coming up with ideas. But increasingly, with more and more, I'm still based in London, but I have a lot of teams in California now, so a lot of that time, golden thinking time, is taken up with US calls now, so I'm going to have to think about how to carve that out.
And can we get the timer on here, please, if that's possible? Just otherwise we'll keep you away from your drinks. I'm not sure how much longer we've got. And what does the future hold? I think you've been part of you were one of the people, I think, who signed one of these open letters sort of warning about, genuine sort of existential risk, which wasn't particularly defined. Where do you sit on the hope, hype, apocalypse?
Look, I'm, as you might expect, I think there's a lot of kind of sort of crazy hype on both sides of this equation. There's the sort of, I think it's called like doomer camp now, of people thinking, for sure this is going to go wrong. And then there's the people on the sort of Pollyanna camp of like, look, it's all just another technology. We've seen this before with mobile internet. It's going to be big like that, but we're very adaptable as a society and as humans, and it's going to be nothing special. I think clearly that's wrong. This is, I think, far bigger than the internet or mobile or something like that. I think it's epochal defining. I've always thought that. I think it's becoming clear to more and more people, but I've thought that since I was a kid, which is why I worked my whole life on this. If it could be done, it would be unbelievably impactful. Of course, the reason I'm doing all of this is because I think AI is going to be incredibly positive for the world. I think we're within shooting distance of curing all diseases with AI, helping with climate through material science and new energy sources and other things that I think AI can invent, as well as in our daily lives, just improving productivity and enriching our daily lives and making mundane admin things sort of be dealt with automatically. I think those are all amazing, and that's all coming very soon. But there is a risk of these systems, where these are new systems with a new technology. They're incredibly powerful. I've seen this in the microcosm of games, something I understand well, like playing chess, where you start with a system, Alpha Zero, that's random in the morning. By morning coffee break, it's better than, it can beat me. And then by lunchtime, it's better than the world champion. And then by afternoon, sort of in 8 hours, it's better than the best chess, hard-coded chess computers. So it's the greatest chess playing entity the world's ever seen in 8 hours from random. So I've actually watched that process over an 8-hour period, and it's quite incredible. If that, of course, that's just a game and it's narrow. But I don't see any reason why that capability can't be generalized to these more general systems and language and world models and so on. And so it would be immensely powerful, but it has to be handled with care. And I think that we just don't know. So the reason I signed that letter is I just wanted to give some weight against the sort of Pollyannaism of like, there's nothing here to see, that actually there's some unknown risk, and we need to define. I think we've got time. But 10 years is not a lot of time for something that monumental coming down the road. So we need to do a lot more research and on things like controllability, understanding what these systems do on a theoretical level, and very important things like how do we define goals for the systems and values for the systems, and how do we make sure they stick to them. These are all kind of unknowns with the current nascent technology. So I would say I'm a cautious optimist. So I think we'll solve it if we get our act together, we do this internationally, put all the best minds on it, we get going now. I'm very happy to see the AI safety institutes that have been set up in the UK and US, and we were big advocates of that happening and testing the latest models, but we need a lot more of that. So I was just sort of encouraging that really to happen. And I think given sufficient time, with sufficient brain power, I believe in human ingenuity. I think we'll get this right. But there are risks, and we can't cut corners, and we need to treat it, I think, with the respect and almost the reverence, I think, that this technology deserves, that we're on the cusp of.
I mean, what you said sort of I found slightly petrifying. I mean, if you sort of generalize from what happened in chess, it's fine, but let's say I make my living going to my office every day and earning from my chess, not from beating other humans, but because there's some sort of utilitarian value to playing chess. What you're saying is a system that might do away with almost all human value.
I don't think so. I think there's important philosophical discussions that are going to come up soon. Like, how do we spread? We should be in an era, if AGI works, of radical abundance, right? There shouldn't be a shortage of scarcity of things like energy and therefore resources and other things. So I think that does change the dynamic of economies, and this is in the long run I'm talking about. So we need to start thinking about that and preparing for that now. Like, how do we want to distribute that extra abundance and that wealth? Whether that's some kind of universal basic provision or something like that. That we need to start thinking about that now, and economists and people like that, I feel like they need to start working on that now.
One last question. The UK, I mean, we're in the UK and there's the US is undoubtedly sort of the center of AI. We're having this discussion about whether we need more compute in the UK, whether the government needs to be backing it. Is that something that's required, and are there ways in which we might fall behind?
I think it's a huge growth area, and I think something that the UK government should be encouraging. I would say it's more about things like encouraging investment in the country, local investment, planning permissions for brownfield sites, locating them in maybe poorer parts of the country, also near renewable energy like offshore wind. So I think there's a huge opportunity there, and I think many of the biggest companies, see the UK as an attractive place to do research, do business. And we've got a great ecosystem here. We have world-class universities. So one of the reasons that, DeepMind is here, and I think us being here has helped set up a kind of ecosystem of great startups in the UK based on AI or having, adjacent to AI. So I think the government just needs to sort of unlock that and make that really easy for companies to invest and build stuff here, including, massive data centers.
Yeah, fabulous. Look, thank you very much indeed, Demis.
Have me.
It's a pleasure to have you here.
Great, thank you.
Oh, you've got a fascinator.